Today we will discuss The Fourth Way Up, a book by Anatoly Arlashin. The Fourth Way Up is a solid, modern textbook on the fourth way based on the experience of teaching in fourth way groups. In 1996, a good friend of mine sent me an electronic version of the seventh book by Carlos Castaneda. I still remember reading that book on the screen of my computer. The book captivated me. Of course, later I read other books by Castaneda. That book was telling a story. A postgraduate student traveled to Mexico to study the culture of Mexican Indians. There, he came into contact with the school of magic. In that school, he was taught by a shaman who he later called Don Juan. As I was reading these books, a thought came to me: why are these books written by a student but not by the teacher? If only I could get my hands on a book written by a man of knowledge, such as Don Juan, I would have read it with particular interest. And The Fourth Way Up is precisely that. It is a book written not by a student, but by a man of knowledge. Let me briefly outline Anatoly Arlashin's biography. Anatoly Arlashin studied the fourth way under Fyodor Petrovich Verevin, who was a direct student of Gurdjieff. Verevin was part of the group that Gurdjieff led in Moscow from 1913 to 1917. After that, Gurdjieff and some of his students left Russia. P.D. Uspensky left with them, but Verevin stayed. After the World War II, Verevin established a fourth way school, and it is that school where Anatoly Arlashin studied from 1965 to 1968. Before joining that school, Anatoly Arlashin had achieved significant results in Hatha and Raja Yoga. After his fourth way training, Anatoly Arlashin studied telepathy and clairvoyance under the leading specialists of the time. He even found a secret school of clairvoyance that belonged to a tradition connected to Grigory Rasputin. That was a closed and secretive school, and it is clear why. Such activities were strictly forbidden in the Soviet Union. However, afterwards, Anatoly Arlashin began working in an official and legal laboratory where he studied parapsychology and trained remote viewers. Having studied yoga, parapsychology, and fourth way, Anatoly Arlashin concluded that it is the fourth way which is the best foundation for the development of consciousness. In 1996, Anatoly Arlashin founded a fourth way school in Moscow, and since then he has led this school together with Tatiana Orbo. And this book, The Fourth Way Up, encapsulates the experience of teaching people in that school and in that laboratory. It turns out that the published information on the fourth way is far from complete. Gurdjieff taught many things in his Moscow group that are hard to find in open sources. The Fourth Way Up fills this gap. This book explains the familiar concepts and principles of the fourth way from an entirely new perspective. Let's take false personality as an example. If we open P.D. Uspensky book In Search of the Miraculous, we will find information about false personality, what it is and how it hinders a person. In The Fourth Way Up, false personality is illustrated on many examples of real people, on examples of real human tragedies. This book explains that false personality is a source of suffering which torments people and keeps them stuck in the very swamp they are trying to escape. Another example is self-remembering. According to the common understanding, self-remembering is self-observation. People observe themselves, trying not to forget their phone or not to lose their keys. They track their posture, their actions, their thoughts and emotions. There is no doubt that self-observation is the foundation of self-remembering and the fourth way in general. Actually, self-observation is necessary on other paths of spiritual development. If you have chosen a path and you are trying to implement certain ideas in your life without self-observation, how will you find if you are succeeding? The fourth way up explains that there are different levels to self-remembering. One starts with self-observation and then goes deeper. At deeper levels, one becomes aware of themselves as a spirit. Another example is objective laws. If we search for the Enneagram online today, we will find all kinds of distorted information. People have misrepresented Gurdjieff's teachings, making it nearly impossible to understand what the Enneagram truly is. The fourth way up explains the Enneagram exactly the way Gurdjieff taught it in his Moscow group, as an objective law. What does the word objective mean? The word objective means created by objective consciousness. An objective law works regardless whether people know about it or not, regardless whether people like it or not. An example of an objective law is the Pythagorean theorem. You may or may not like Pythagoras. He was a controversial figure, but that does not matter. The theorem holds true. You may or may not remember the formula of that theorem, but that doesn't matter either. The theorem applies anyway. The same can be said about other objective laws. For example, Ohm's law in electricity. Try violating Ohm's law, whether you know it or not. What sets apart the Enneagram from other objective laws is that it is a universal objective law, meaning that it describes all processes and phenomena in our world. When people learn objective laws, they often complain that it is difficult. And it is indeed difficult because this knowledge is totally alien to us. We do not have it in our culture. It is the knowledge of the ancients or the knowledge of extraterrestrials. Take your pick. Anyway, this knowledge is totally new to us. Of course, there have been brilliant individuals throughout our history who have discovered some parts of the objective laws. We can take dialectics as an example. It contains the law of struggle and unity of opposites and the law of transformation of quantity into quality. These are parts of the Enneagram. Or consider Heinrich Altschuler and his brilliant theory of inventive problem solving. That theory contains, amongst other things, substance field analysis and the theory of technical systems development. These are also facets of the Enneagram. Field substance analysis is pretty much law of three. Now there is psychology, a science that studies cycles. Science has finally begun to notice that certain events and processes in our world repeat. This science sees the world as numerous repeating processes that interact with each other, cycles. And this is also a facet of the Enneagram. Gurdjieff unified the objective laws into a single one, the Enneagram. To address the complexity of the objective laws, the fourth way up explores them through numerous practical examples. It is a hallmark of true objective knowledge. It can be applied in practice. This book was written in early 2000s, and since then it has been updated and revised by the author. It was initially a closed teaching manual for fourth way groups, but now it has been published. The time has come. So if you're interested in the fourth way, it is an excellent textbook to start with. And if you're teaching the fourth way, this book contains extremely valuable information for you. So if you have not read the fourth way up, it is time to start.